Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to Lion Voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here. Hear me now. Yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the lion's voice.
During that period of time, 1981 to 1985, an X-24 of I get killed, shot and killed in the hills with the terrorist squad. It was a death squad. Fully funded by this time by the CIA. And all they did was they were sponsored, they were fed and supplied, drunken, and sent in the bush to hunt I down. So it was a bit of struggle. During that period of time, some of I had to resort to armed struggle to eventually get them to sign a peace treaty. So that is just some of the realities. But during that period of time, certain incidents took place to Grenada during the time of the Grenada Revolution. I told you before, Maurice Bishop was the only lawyer who came to Dominica to represent I when they charged I for murder. They deported him the next day after they sentenced I to harm. But after I escaped from jail, then I went to Grenada for a little time and ground myself and built back myself, and I stayed there for a period of time, and then I returned to DA when I was a little stronger. But when I returned to DA, it was the same fire going on. The terrorists and the death squad was on the full rampage, and at the same time, they killed brothers close to I dwellings in the mountain.
And the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabe is giving birth in a place called Ergersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Lich Tafari's father, Ras Kabinda, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Kabinda is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Kabinda knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Lich Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting, and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwesi Bansu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
For 2 years, virtually from 1979 to 1981, we had total freedom. We virtually ruled Dominica. We had radio program, everything. We were fully, highly regarded and respected. But in 1981, the CIA set up elections and they put one Eugenia Charles in power. Together with with Tom Adams in Barbados and Hugh Shearer in Jamaica. They formed an unholy alliance. And they ganged up with the CIA and they terrorized I. They passed a terrorist law in Dominica to replace the Dread Act, which was worse than the Terrorist Act. During that period of time, 1981 to 1985, an X-24 of I get killed, shot and killed in the hills with the terrorist squad. It was a death squad, fully funded by this time by the CIA. And all they did was they were sponsored, they were fed and supplied, drunken, and sent in the bush to hunt I down. It was a bitter struggle. During that period of time, some of I had to resort to armed struggle to eventually get them to sign a peace treaty. So that is just some of the realities. But during that period of time, certain incidents took place to Grenada during the time of the Grenada Revolution. I told you before, Maurice Bishop was the only lawyer who came to Dominica to represent I when they charged I for murder. They deported him the next day after they sentenced I to harm. But after I escaped from jail, then I went to Grenada for a little time and ground myself and build back myself, and I stayed there for a period of time, and then I returned to DA when I was a little stronger. But when I returned to DA, it was the same fire going on. The terrorists and the death squad was on the full rampage, and at the same time, they killed brothers close to I dwellings in the mountain. And when they did that now, it was a man they called Honeychurch, together with a couple of the death squad. They just come up in the hills and in cold blood, they just kill one of our brethren in his home, a 19-year-old youth. So at that time, some of the other brothers, we took a man called Honeychurch into the mountain as ransom and informed the government that unless they do stop them unwarranted killings of I in the mountain, we have this one. And if you stop the law, we will deal with him otherwise. But unfortunately, he was a British major, and somehow he got away and he killed one of the brothers and them. So in so doing, the brothers and them had no choice than to enact justice. So during that period, after that period of time, then I returned to Grenada a second time to help build up the revolution then together with Maurice and try to consolidate, because a division had arisen. In the beginning of the Grenada Revolution, Ras Tafari was in control. We manned the army. But then afterwards, when the Cubans and them came in, the Cubans and them tried to minimize the influence of I as Rastafari as a vital ingredient in the revolutionary struggle, and tried to impose their Marxist-Leninist doctrine. This created a rift with the brothers and them, and certain attempt was made on some of the leaders because the ghetto watched it as though they were being betrayed. So when I re-entered Grenada, that was in about 1985, no, 1980, one of the 80s then. When I returned there, then I tried to reconcile the differences. And I held several meetings, Nyabingi gatherings throughout the length and breadth of Grenada. And I showed them that, yeah, it's possible I can be an intermediary. They had a particular brother called Nang Nang locked up in the jail.
Yes.
He was the head of the Revolution Guard at the time when I was there the first time. So I negotiated to get his release. And then we started to hold Nyabingi the length and breadth of Grenada, and we emphasized to Maurice that a revolution without a culture cannot survive. And Rastafari is as relevant the culture for the revolution as any can be. That Marxist-Leninism is a doctrine that was suitable to an industrialized Europe. But that Rastafari, coming from a slave experience, Rastafari and the ideology and philosophy of Rastafari and the teachings of His Majesty and the African liberation struggle was more relevant to I, and therefore we should supposed to keep a close solidarity in that level. And it was in agreement with I and humble himself and allowed I to come into his palace anytime, any day, and bring in Rastafari from all over the country to show them, well, here we will stand in solidarity with the movements, but there must be straightforward talk. We cannot be undermining one another. We can't allow the Cuban and them to come in as though they are the initiators of the movements. They just come to help. At that time, they was building the international airport.
Okay.
So then it created a conflict till eventually they deported me out of Grenada. As the same forces that killed Morris deported Grenada because they were our influence. Morris was humbling to I and I based on our experience in Dominica and the struggles we had gone through. And he accepted I and I philosophy, and he was willing to host a international gathering of Ras Tafari in Grenada to solidify the revolution. So before that could manifest, the same forces that killed him came, arrested I and deported I out of Grenada and locked up Nang Nang and the other brothers.
Okay.
Many years in the struggle.
I got some of that history from Ras Miguel Lorne. Shared some of that history, and also, all right, family. So we have challenges with the Wi-Fi. The brethren will come forward, but the item can see how powerful this episode is. This is one of those episodes that is a milestone marker. I heard that the brethren had been in the jail and the hurricane come blow down the jail. The history is different, but it's not much different, you know what I mean? So this is why the Lions have to tell our own story. This is the platform where we are reaching out to these legendary brethren and sisters while they are still with I and I, so that we can hear directly from them. How many ones knew that there were armed struggle in the Caribbean that brethren had to fight just to maintain their way of life and to stop themselves from being murdered? We don't talk about the Dread Act. What a wicked act. We talk about Coral Garden Massacre, rightly so, but just know in Dominica, there was the Dread Act, which was so terrible. All right, brethren, I was just saying that I got some of this history from Ras Miguel Lorne and from Ras Sekou.
Yeah. Tafari.
Tafari. So the guy is filling in some key components, and I would tell everyone to go and watch those episodes with Ras Miguel and Ras Sekou, who also gives some other parts of this history, because this is a history we don't talk about enough as part of the Rastafari Caribbean Pan-African connection that was taking place in the 70s and the 80s. So from the I was deported from Grenada, what awaited you in Dominica? Isis? All right, as I said, we're dealing with some Wi-Fi challenges. Technology, we are straight to Mount Zion. The brethren is calling us from Ethiopia. I first met Ras Kabinda when I went to Ethiopia in 2007 with I Queen, Brother John, and the late Sister Pauline, who has now transitioned. So really and truly, we have to just give thanks. And as we said, this is a legendary episode, legendary part of the journey of the Lion Voice Network, to hear this history from someone who has lived it.
Well, after the deportation from Grenada, I basically returned to Dominica. And at that time, most of my time I used to be spending up in the hills. But there was a case of one of our brothers who, during the early days of the struggle, under the Terrorist Act, the police and them was just shooting and indiscriminately. Cold-blooded murder was taking place.
And give the year again. What year was this happening?
That was in the mid-1980s.
Okay.
Because I left after, between 79 and 81, there was a kind of freedom in the land. And after 81, when they set up the election, Eugenia come in power, then it was during that period of time.
Okay.
So There were white advisors, white police instructors from England, who together with the death squad was made up of a set of ghetto men from India who used to come. Their only work was to come and terrorize us in the mountain, run us down in the mountain. They were fully sponsored by the CIA. So during that period of time, they made a raid on the estate of one Honeychurch, Ted Honeychurch. He was a expatriate, a white man from England, maybe an ex-major. So during that time, they had some of the youths and them who were the children of the elders who worked on the estate for several years. So on the little plots of land that they had given them to hold them attached to the estate, their sons and them growing up now as Farai were working those lands and surviving off their labor. But the white man, he did not agree to that. He found that, well, if they don't want to work for him, they shouldn't be there. So he called up the death squad. The death squad come up in the mountain, just not too far from where I was based in the hills to a place called Babia, in the heights of Giro there. And they shot one of our youth and them in cold-blooded murder. Two of the youth and them, they killed them in cold-blooded murder inside of their parents' little shack. So when that happened, it created a turmoil. So the one who was responsible for calling the police, some of the other brothers and them arrested him and brought him up in the hills and gave a declaration to the Prime Minister, Eugenia Charles, that unless they don't stop the killing of I and I indiscriminately, then him is I and I hostage. But during that period of time, certain things take place, and he killed one of I and I youths and them. Wow. So the rest of the youth and them with him, they executed judgment upon him. So that created a whole vibe because he was like an ex-British major and thing like that, a very strong colonial figure. So he created a whole turmoil in the land and searching and things like that. Eventually they charged one of the brothers and them who had get injured in running for the hills, had fallen down in the precipice and damaged himself. And then he got injured, and when he sought medical attention, they ended up charging him. They ended up charging him for murder. So in the first case in Dominica, he lost the appeal. He lost the case. We went to the Caribbean Court of Appeal. He lost the appeal. We went to Privy Council. Therefore, we had no other choice to save him, to go to the Privy Council. So during that period of time, I haven't been the only one who's gone through the experience of facing capital punishment, etc. I had to arrangements. I went to Guadeloupe and to Martinique in particular. And while out there, I was able to raise certain funding. At that time, a Nigerian playwright, Wole Soyinka, was also doing a workshop in.
Hold on, yeah, I'm muted. You have to unmute your mic. Are you getting a phone call? Is that what's happening? I'm not hearing the eye again.
When you say Wole Soyinka, after he had assisted I and I, like I said, then I went to England. And in England, I was able to raise funds working together with the Ethiopian World Federation, etc., to raise enough funds to bring the brother's case to the Privy Council. And the Privy Council, they didn't give an immediate result. We had to wait a couple of months. So during that period of time, I went to Zimbabwe and stayed in Zimbabwe. I went together with a brother called Ras Moya and a sister called Sister Sadie and an ex-sister. We went to Zimbabwe as a first stage to see if we could set a foundation in Africa. So I stayed in Zimbabwe a couple of months, about 4 months, before we got the decision of the Privy Council that rejected the appeal. So I had to leave Zimbabwe and return to England, raise up an next funds and return to the Caribbean, to Dominica, to lodge a prerogative of mercy on behalf of the brother. And we were able to lodge the prerogative of mercy and submitted it to the Attorney General and to the Prime Minister and them. showing them well there was enough grounds because brother had spent a good amount of time in jail, almost 90 days he had been there in jail. So we lost that prerogative of mercy, and then we followed up footing steps. It was the first stage. Once you lodge the appeal, then they kind of slow down their intention. And then we pursued other matters. I stayed in Dominica for a while, and then I returned to England after a period of time. Yeah, somebody sitting across. Yeah, I stayed in England for a period of time, and then I began start to make movements. Otherwise, after I returned from Zimbabwe, I stayed in England for a while, and then in 1991, I went to Ethiopia.
When the Almighty has manifested himself in physical form and was born as Ras Tafari Makonnen, through hard work and diligence he attained the title of the chess match. When he fought in many wars and was crowned as Ras. By the will of the people he was given the title of Negos, and by destiny, Nobusanagas, the King of Kings. I and I are his children. One day we are gonna do where Marco say, take a long journey across the ocean wave. One day we'll do things Ras Tafari way. One day we are will give Jah thanks and praise. One day we are gonna do where Marco say, take a long journey across the ocean wave. One day we'll do things Ras Tafari way. One day we gonna free our mental slave. One day we are gonna live better. We da listen, I see I speech and overstand every letter. One day we are gonna live well. Spread I listen, I see I teach and trap the wicked down the hell. Escape Vatican spell. Escape the brave, I and I are the slave that rebel. Safe in a Zion we will dwell. I see I listen, I see I face while treading as in angels. One day we are gonna do where Marco say, take a long journey across the ocean wave. One day we'll do things Ras Tafari way. One day we are will give Jah thanks and praise. One day we are gonna do where Marco say, take a long journey across the ocean wave. One day we'll do things Ras Tafari way. One day we gonna free our mental slave. One day you're heaven and the earth. Everywhere you search, man a hill I listen, I see I the first. One day the guns will stop burst. One day the preacher will go tell the youth the truth in the church. One day the youths will stop curse. One day the sun will provide the energy for do the work. One day there will be no more pain and hurt. One day we take a aeroplane and splurge.